Welcome back to Let the Quran Speak. Do Muslims have a devotion to saints that is seen in some other religions? We'll be discussing that now. But Shabir, perhaps you can answer that question. Do Muslims have saints, first of all?
The term saints obviously is an English term, and when we think of what might be the Arabic equivalent, or what an Arabic might refer to people who might be called saints in English, there is a term wali, which means something like guardian in one context, but it also in another context means someone who is under one's protection. Or
someone close to
another one, so it can mean a friend.
Okay.
So in this sense, it seems that many persons in Islamic history have been characterized by their followers or by later thinkers as being close to God, being friends of God. So a singular would be wali and the plural will be awliya.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these terms are used in the Quran for Muslims who seek to be devoted to God. Inna awliya Allah. Certainly the friends of God, la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun, shall have no fear nor shall they grieve.
Are they used to refer to particular people then?
No, not to particular people,
Okay.
but it is a general description of those who choose to be with God rather than to turn away from God, those who are devout in their worship of God. And by the other side of that is that God describes himself as the wali of the believers. He is the friend of the believers. And there's a verse of the Quran which says that the angels come down from heaven to those people who declare that there is none but God, and who remain devoted to that declaration. The angels say, "Nahnu awliya'ukum fil hayati dunya wa fil akhirah." We are your awliya, we are your friends in this life and in the life hereafter. So much for the term itself and the breadth of its usage.
Mm-hmm. So how would saints come about then? I mean, I'm not familiar with the other religious traditions and how they come about, but it seems like after a time, after they've died, they become saints. People consider them saints.
Yes, it would seem that in the Islamic tradition, even within the lifetime of an individual, he may gather followers,
Okay.
people who really are closely devoted to him. They recognize in this person a great degree of piety, a sort of renunciation of the things of this world, a focus on the life hereafter, a lot of emphasis on private worship and remembrance of God and recitation of the Quran. So he will gather persons who aspire to the same sort of goodness and who may recognize their own shortcomings in this area and may hope that by associating with this great person who is so close to God, they may derive some blessings through such association.
So could you give me an example of somebody like this, some individual who was revered in this way?
I can think of Sheikh al-Hadith Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Kandhlawi, an Indian scholar who wrote most of the sections of the book now referred to as Tablighi Nisab. He was noted to be a very saintly individual, close to God, very devoted in worship. He had followers and people who would serve him. And it is related that after his death, they got his clothing and they used it as a source of blessing, thinking that if they keep these as relics, then they will derive blessings from God.
Now, some Muslims go to these tombs, or to the what are they called? The burial grounds where people are buried, and they go and worship there, or make supplications there. What are the limits? What is considered allowed and what isn't considered allowed?
A distinction should be made between our making dua or supplication for the dead person, which is allowed in Islam and encouraged, and on the other hand, asking the dead person to intercede for us, which now becomes questionable.
Okay. Questionable but not prohibited?
No, I should explain that. Let me start there then. In terms of visiting the grave of the Prophet, peace be upon him, definitely this is encouraged, and in doing so, one would give salam to the Prophet. One would say, Assalamu alayka, ayyuhan Nabi, peace be on you, O Prophet. as we do in our prayers, Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi. And even though we do it from a distance, we believe that the angels carry this word of greeting to the Prophet. Now that brings the question to mind, is the Prophet alive or dead? Well, obviously in terms of history, he is dead. But in terms of faith, he is alive.
His spirit is alive.
We believe that the spirit of the prophets, and of all people in fact, remain alive, so they retain some degree of consciousness. And while he's not omniscient, he can be informed by God of the prayers and supplications that others are making on his behalf. But praying to him is entirely forbidden. This was so during his lifetime, and it is so even now. We cannot pray to the Prophet.
But can we ask the Prophet for, for intercession?
There's a difference of opinion among Muslim scholars regarding this. Some are of the view that you can ask the Prophet to intercede for you with God, and then at the same time ask God to accept the intercession of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that he will make on our behalf.
Okay.
So this is a bit roundabout in that if you're going to ask, why don't you ask God directly rather than ask the Prophet to ask God and then ask God to accept what the Prophet is going to ask and so on. The more direct route obviously is to pray to God directly without an intermediary or an intercessor, and some other Muslim scholars would insist that not only that this is the better way, but that this is the only way, that we should not ask the Prophet, peace be upon him, to intercede on our behalf. We should just go there, give our salam, give our greeting, and move away from the scene.
Very quickly, what about saints? Can we ask for intercession through them?
Well, I think it follows by implication that if we cannot ask the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who is the saint of all saints, then what good is it going to do to ask the others? And since there is a question even about asking the Prophet, peace be upon him, for his intercession, now that he is dead, historically, then what would be the point of asking the saints for that?
All right, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we answer questions we've received from you, our viewers.